You're listening to the Valley Current.
Yeah, I mean, what I want to introduce, because I think it's a topic we can come back to as we look at what the effect is across multiple professions, is this AI innovation that has actually been worked on for probably the last 4 or 5 or more years. The whole area has been worked on for more like 10 or maybe even 20.
Right.
Because AI has been sort of privately doing lots of stuff in the background, but nothing has been introduced recently. Nothing had been introduced historically until very recently.
Right.
Was ChatGPT made its way on the scene in a format that's very interactive and kind of reminds me of some of the computer games from a few decades ago. And of course, it came on the heels of some other stuff that allowed textual descriptions to generate artwork, or to generate photographs.
Right.
And it's all based on the same AI machine learning principles that if you train computers, massively parallel computers, on enough data, they can actually start to emulate creativity and maybe even provide knowledge work in a way that's reliable. So it's quite an innovation that has everyone wondering, gosh, is this the future? Is this where we're headed? So just generally speaking, it's sort of an area that is ripe for a lot of discussion because it has the public interest, and newspapers, magazines, TV shows, so many different things are all saying the same thing, which is, look, is this real? Is it fake? Is it really going to make a difference? Is it C- work? Is it B? Is it B+ work? Is it A+ work? And there are already different people that are announcing different predictions about where this goes in law, where this goes in business, where this goes in banking. And so I wanted to have a discussion with you because before I started the video going, I did a really fast ChatGPT question, which has a very specific question, because that's kind of what drives this.
Right.
So the question was generated off of this photo being in my mind, which everyone wants to know. How do you save a ton of money? And these are $100 bills, right? Which sets the stage for people want to know, well, how do you save money on a mortgage product? And I'm sure you field these questions all the time.
Yes.
Where people call you and say, how do I get the best fixed rate mortgage? How do I get the best variable rate mortgage? So I posed this question. I did it in the background, but I'll put up the answer that it gave so you can see it. Because I thought, oh, we should get Joe's views on this. And what I did is I put up the question. Let me just get this centered correctly. I put up the question, what are the best ways to get the lowest fixed rate loan for a new residence in Silicon Valley, California? Now, the question is packed with important information because A, you want to know if it's a residence. B, you want to know, is it a fixed rate deal or a variable deal? And where? And you would even probably argue where in Silicon Valley. I just said Silicon Valley. You might even say, well, tell me whether it's East Palo Alto or Palo Alto, right? You would be far more granular.
Right.
And it just came back with these 7 responses, and I wanted to get your views about it. It says, to get the lowest fixed rate loan for a new residence in Silicon Valley, California, consider the following tips. Number 1, shop around. You would probably agree with that, right?
Yep.
Compare loan options from multiple lenders. That makes sense.
Yeah. Improve your credit score. Yeah.
Right. Improve your credit score is actually a really big topic because a lot of people don't have the foggiest idea of how to do it, right?
Yeah, that's true.
So we'll put down, because the thing about ChatGPT that's the real innovation, it remembers the context of the query.
Oh, Okay.
So we can then write, well, how do I improve my credit score? And we can see what it does in real time.
Right.
The 3, it says make a large down payment. We could, you would probably agree. That's a smaller loan. They're easier to do. They're generally easier to shop, and they're generally easier to get some federal assistance on, right?
Well, the other thing that is true, and this is how good this is. So the obvious one is put a larger down payment will lower your payment. But the one it's interesting that they add to that is true, actually. In many cases, the more you put down, especially over a certain threshold, your rate can improve. So
right.
That's true. Yeah.
Right. So conceptually, you have to say to yourself, okay, the first 3, probably the right order, shop around.
Yeah.
Probably the right order. Maybe you'd say improve your credit score before shopping around. If you had put it in a different order, a knowledge worker might say that's really a long-term thing. You might as well start that right away. Make a large down payment. That means going to family and friends and whatnot to figure out how you're going to pull that off. And then they go into stuff that's very tactical, like opt for a shorter loan term. Shorter terms typically come with lower rates. Okay. I mean, we didn't specify a 30-year versus a 15-year versus something else, and maybe we should have put that in the question. Provide documentation. I mean, you would agree that's probably worth comparing 15 versus 30 years on a fixed.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah. Provide documentation of income and assets. I mean, that's a little bit like improving your credit score. You can almost say maybe that should go towards the top, collect up all your documentation because you really want to figure out how you're going to use it to improve your credit score and maybe to get your larger down payment set up.
I think actually, I would say these are in pretty good order so far, because really you're going to want to know your credit score so you could do some work on it. If in fact it is too low to get a better rate, then I would say you want to work on that credit score before you start collecting documents.
Right. So if you think about this, it's like if you put an associate or a staff member at your office to say, let's create a question and answer for a website.
Right.
I mean, this thing did this in like 30 seconds. And your knowledge worker in your office, who's obviously a full-time employee, has benefits, so many other things, they might take an hour or 2 hours to do this. And you might say, this is not worth an hour or 2 hours a week.
Right.
Or you'll start thinking that way now because you see what automation has done. The analogy I give is years ago, people used to tally up these long sets of numbers at closings. They were all done by hand and with a calculator, and often with like a machine that would put out a tape.
Yeah.
Right. Some people still have that, where they punch in the numbers, they crank the machine. Sometimes it's electric.
Yeah.
I don't even know what it's called anymore. My kids wouldn't even know this existed. It was like a hand calculator,
right,
with an actual tape, and the tape was paper that generated a series of numbers in a column.
I remember that.
Remember that? Some people still have those machines. It's probably hard to find the paper for them. It's a little bit like computers with punch cards and punch card readers. I mean, you're just not going to do any of that stuff anymore, right?
We used to actually the night before pull up reservations in the airlines and handwrite tickets and put them in will calls so they're ready the next day.
Yeah. I mean, that was the paper-driven society that we were in. There was no question about it. So, then it says probably 6 should be last, because 7 says work with a local lender who understands the Silicon Valley real estate market. That's you. That's like spot on, right?
That's important. That's
important because really the machine is not going to really do all the legwork that you do yet. We'll just underscore yet, because we don't know where this is going and could go in a number of directions. But then it says, which I think should be number 7, depending on what the local lender says, consider an adjustable rate mortgage, because maybe you really would get a better, lower rate for the period of time you expect to be in the house, which you might say is on average, what, 7 years?
7 years, right?
Probably 5 years in Silicon Valley.
It's 7 or 8 in Silicon Valley. It might be less now. A couple of years ago, it was about 7, average of 7 years.
Right. People get these 30-year mortgages because they think like their parents, but their parents were completely different. They were never going to move. They were going to stay near their parents or near their whatever relatives that they were near. And they were just locked into a view that one house, one mortgage, one payment per month, and they weren't moving for 30 years. They look forward to burning the mortgage, like in the 30th anniversary.
Yeah, I've ever since I can remember that I've been in this business, I've always done a 7 or a 10-1 arm on my primary residence. Now, on my rental properties, I had a tendency to go longer term fixed if it got down, just because they were a longer hold. But to this day, I have an arm on my primary home.
Right, and you would say that wasn't a mistake because
no.
The rates have been good, right?
Yeah, right.
Generally speaking. So
7 to 10 years, it's any kind of economic cycle. In 7 to 10 years, you're going to likely come into a market where your rates are going to be the same or better.
Right. So just to show you, I'm going to put in what is the best way to shop around for to find multiple residential real estate lenders. I don't know if it's going to say look at the yellow pages. I kind of doubt it, but I'll put this back up and you can.
It'll probably say search online.
Well, that's what most people do, right? It's like a stupid question because you'd say you're asking something that most people know how to do. They go to Google. That's their first go-to thing, right?
Right.
So if you're shopping around for multiple residential real estate lenders can be done through the following steps. 1, online search. That's what we said. It's still going, right?
Yeah.
2, but it's fast. I mean, it's really fast, which reminds me of something I have to say because it goes to the beginning of the personal computer industry that I witnessed in the 1970s, which is when the personal computer, and it wasn't yet, understood just how vibrant the PC market would become. People often said it's just a toy. They're saying the same thing that they're saying about this. It's just a toy. No one's going to use it. Who wants it? Who's going to put it on their desk? Who can afford it? Like a million different statements of negativity. But then something called VisiCalc, visible calculator, that's the sort of trademark that was created by a client of ours at my old law firm, now Fenwick and West, back then Davis, Stafford, Kelman, and Fenwick.
Right.
And a company called Personal Software that had a collaboration with Software Arts for the creation and marketing of VisiCalc, which was a online spreadsheet, not online. There was no internet that was available back then. It was available to the government and the like, but it wasn't available to consumers. But that product made its way onto personal computers, and people saw all these numbers bubble up instantly. And that's the real magic here, besides the context recognition, is it happens fast enough for people to feel as though they're in flow with an interactive session with an expert, even though they don't pretend to be an expert. They're saying, look, we're a tool. Maybe we're more of a brainstorming tool, but we'll give you a bunch of ideas and hopefully it'll be grammatically correct if you really want to use it with somebody. But it's fast. It has this interactive sense to it where you're not waiting a long time.
Right.
And it usually gives numbered paragraphs like this, which are very sort of action oriented, ask for referrals. I mean, you'd say this is like common sense, right?
Right.
It's looking back at multiple volumes of data that presumably it's been trained on, which talk about this subject. And so it's, what's the best way to shop around was probably not best question, but not the best question to ask. But next one would be how to improve your credit score, right? Like, should we do it? Let's see what happens. I mean, what's your sense so far looking at this?
Well, it's amazing. I just started using it myself within the last week, and it's amazing. The other thing is you could be so specific. Like I tested questions, but then I would say specifically, give me the top 5 or do this, do my marketing research on this topic and keep it to 4 paragraphs or something. It's amazing how smart this thing is. I mean, the intelligence of it.
Yeah, so I'm just going to put in even a shorter question this time. How does one best improve their credit score?
Yeah.
It's pretty short, so we're going to see if it really remembers the context, right?
Yeah, and then another question would be interesting if you entered, what are the top 3 things I would do to improve my credit score? You wonder if it would recognize in category of importance.
Right. So you see it spitting out within a few seconds of like typing in, does one best improve their credit score? Numbered paragraphs, pay your bills on time, right?
Amazing. Yeah.
Pretty obvious. Yeah. Keep credit card balances low. You might even say eliminate them, right?
No, keeping them low is actually good. That's a good one. Yeah.
That's a good one.
Credit cards actually don't hurt you as long as you keep the limits low and away from their max.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because I thought you could have too many credit cards, right?
You can, but I'll tell you where it hurts you is when you have even 3 or 4 credit cards and they're maxed out. That hurts you. Okay. And you don't pay down the balance. Yeah.
Right. So then it says limit new credit card applications, right?
Yeah, that's true.
That's a good one. Yeah. Dispute errors on your credit report. There actually are people that help you do that these days.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so it's not like this is known stuff, but it's compiled. They're compiled.
That's good.
Right.
I mean, this honestly, Jack, this would be the almost identical thing that I would talk to someone about. I might have a little variations, but honestly, this is super, super accurate to the steps you want to take and the things you want to understand.
Right. So you might say this little backgrounder would save you probably the first half hour of your call.
No doubt.
These 3 questions. The overview question, the shop around question, the improve your credit score and how to do it question, right? They go through the rest of this, dispute errors, keep old credit accounts open, the length of credit history is a factor. They're actually describing the algorithm that creates the FICO score, right? Isn't that what they're doing here?
That's right. Yeah.
And FICO score is not, it's not something that's published. It's like a secret, but people know the factors that go into it, right?
Right. That's right.
And these factors are relevant. I mean, these are
they are. These are good. Yeah.
So it's kind of one of these interesting situations. Pay down debt, consider debt consolidation. You'd say, yeah, those are all normal topics that you can have a more extended discussion on. But the framework and scaffolding is all here for assembling what becomes the individualized plan for how to get the best fixed rate loan. Right?
I don't know if you've done this yet. I just thought of this. Have you yet typed in a person's name and said, tell me a little bit about Joe Cucchiara, Jack Russo, or something like that? Have you? I haven't tried anything like that.
Yeah, I'll tell you what it does. If the name is recognized, I've done it. I've done it. If the name is recognized, like for example, I typed in, who is Computer Law Group?
Okay.
LLP. I'll show you what comes back. It's interesting. Hold on.
Okay.
So you could see Zoom should integrate because people are probably going to want to do this during a Zoom session without flipping back and forth, right?
Yeah. Can you imagine with this technology then developing the support overseas where they have a lot of these virtual assistants that basically work full time for $800 a month?
Yeah. I mean, it's
amazing.
Yeah. I mean, it's like in some ways you could say that it's amplifying a knowledge worker's facility to take advantage of internet information, right?
Right.
So I'm typing in, what is the law firm called Computer Law Group LLP in Silicon Valley, California? Okay. So let's see what it comes back with, because I imagine if it doesn't find it, well, it's found it. So hang on a second, I'll show you what's coming up. So this I just typed in that 10-word
Okay.
period. And it says, and so the boutique law firm, that's correct, it specializes in providing legal services to technology companies and startups. Firm offers a wide variety of services, wide range of services, blah, 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 blah. So to me, it's an accurate.
That's a very accurate summary, isn't it?
It's an accurate summary that's likely leveraged off of the fact that we've been on the internet from, for the last 35 plus, maybe going on 40 years. So there's deep links that demonstrate the fact that we're on the internet. And so they treat it as more valid than, say, some brand new firm that may have just been launched.
Yeah.
That doesn't really have deep links. You want me to type in your group's company?
Yeah, just my name, or I'm not concerned about my lender. Maybe type in something about Real Estate Radio Live or my name.
Yeah, that would be good, because Real Estate Radio Live's been around for a while, right?
Yeah, it has. Yeah.
I mean, do I say Real Estate Radio Live as 3 separate words?
Yeah, or you might say, tell me about the podcast Real Estate Radio Live or something like that. While you're doing that, so as I think about that article, so you think this is really going to challenge this is the first thing that's going to challenge Google for years, right?
Well, that's the question that is the more advanced question here, right? The much more advanced question is, where does this go if it starts to be well integrated into so many other programs and people start using it? Because we are a single attention. I mean, as much as we try to multitask, we are really single attention humans. And so if you're using ChatGPT, it means you're not really using Google. Or you're probably not using Google.
Yeah.
And Google's got to feel damned that they didn't do the deal that Microsoft did, because Microsoft is now integrating ChatGPT into its Teams product.
Do they have an exclusive with them?
I mean, I don't know if it's exclusive or not. So it found Real Estate Radio Live, so that's good news. You're probably happy to hear that, right? Yes. No, seriously.
Yeah, I am. Yeah.
I mean, I was happy to hear that they found Computer Law Group, because you could argue it's a little bit like, hey, you're spending a lot of time online, you're generating a lot of content,
right,
it's being recognized. So it says podcast hosted by Joe Cucchiara. So it's got your name. It didn't put my name with Computer Law Group, so you one-up me there.
Wow, interesting.
Show focuses on real estate industry, valuable information, and insights. We're interested in buying, selling, or investing in real estate. It's spot on, right?
Wow, it's amazing. Look at that. Interviews industry experts, property. Yeah, look at that. So that's a great summary.
It's a great summary that you would say, if I asked someone to write it from scratch, I probably, like if you did a test saying to somebody who knows you and knows your podcast, hey, write me a 3 to 5 sentence or 3 to 5 paragraph description of Real Estate Radio Live. They'll say, like, how much time do I have? A week? And you say, no, you got like 3 minutes. I mean, even yourself probably couldn't have done it as fast, because it takes a while to type. Like
this is remarkable, really. I mean,
right. So you would say, if it's really capable of learning on a continuous basis going forward, and every use by now over 1 million people have used it, and you know that's going to multiply and become 10 million, 100 million, 1 billion. I mean, we have 300 million people in the United States. My guess is probably half of them know how to use Google.
Right.
Probably half of them will know how to use ChatGPT before the end of this year.
Mm-hmm.
And if they're using that, then it's got to get better and better as people do, because they ask you with the thumbs up. Like, I would say we give this a thumbs up, right?
Yeah.
Right. You can provide additional feedback, but thumbs up should be good enough, right?
Yep.
We would say that was pretty good. That was a pretty good outcome.
You
gave it a thumbs up. It didn't need to be fixed. If it was wrong, this thumbs down could be done. Like if I said something wrong, well, you forgot to include Jack Russo, right? I could put in here.
I wonder if you type that instead, share with me some of the guests on Real Estate Radio Live or something like that.
Yeah, now that's getting very specific, right?
Yeah. Right.
So I'll put that in as the last test, because your point is you're trying to hit a limit here for what this thing can do, right?
Yeah. Right.
The context is there, right? The context is certainly there.
Right.
And we've kind of proven in real time that it's providing some real value over what could be done by you or delegated by you to others.
Right. Exactly.
I'm going to say provide a list of the most listened to guests, or just say that.
Yeah. Yeah. Either the most listened to or the top. Yeah. Share with me some of the top guests or my most frequent guests on Real Estate Radio Live or something like that.
And you can see where voice is going to play a role, because people are just going to dictate this stuff, right?
Right. Yeah, this is exciting. Actually, I know sometimes people kind of worry about all this stuff, but I love the technology. This is, you think about how marketing and media and blogging, this is going to take over that industry. Immediately overnight. Well,
I think to some degree it's had its role already and just been hidden. People have. So this is interesting. Let me show you what came back, because it's an interesting punt on their part. So let me just bring it up. They're still punting, but you'll see how they punted, which I think is a valid way for them to do it. They said, as a language model, I do not have access to real-time information about the most
interesting
guests, as guests can change over time. However, typical guests include.
Oh, look at that.
They do the categories, right?
That's really good, actually. That's amazing. And they're right on.
Right.
Real estate, they have attorneys,
right?
Architects, that's true. Home builders, home inspectors. Yeah, that's interesting.
Yeah, you would say this is good, but why did you not provide a
names?
Link?
Yeah, or links or names. Yeah. Right.
You could say that's the next question. What is the link to the podcast, right?
Right.
We'll ask that as the last question, and then we'll kind of summarize, because I think we've done the demonstration that even for the minimal time we put in, we probably have gotten back enough value. And of course, this is free, so it's hard to say there's any problem with the value proposition, right?
So I'm curious and I could do it later, but to get a little more specific, I'd be curious to enter show me or let me listen to a podcast of Jack Russo being interviewed by Real Estate Radio Live or something like that. I wonder what would happen with that.
Yeah. So I'm going to do the more general one. Can you provide a online link?
Okay.
You do have to make sure the questions are complete thoughts, right? Because we talk so fast. And
that's true.
Oh, there you go. They provided the link, Joe.
Did they?
Yeah, let me show it to you. I thought that they were going to say, "Oh, we don't do that without a fee being paid," or something like that. But then they did it. It's interesting. RealestateRadioLive.com.
Wow, look at that. There you go. And once you get there, you can find anything.
Right.
That's amazing.
So it says certainly with an exclamation point. That's just spot on, right?
Yeah.
It's just a spot on statement. So there's quite a lot of text here for the amount of typing I put in. There's probably anywhere from 50 to 100x the multiplier on my words. Like, I put in a question, they put in an answer that runs at least 10 to 15 to 20 times length.
Right.
Way more than you would ever get from any individual typing, and way faster. Mm-hmm. Right.
Right.
So you can imagine that people will start to really execute this over and over and over and over again to build out far more text over time, right?
Yeah.
That seems to be inevitable to me.
It's remarkable. It really is. Wow.
And it's sort of a statement about the acceleration of innovation.
Mm-hmm.
It's the notion that, ideas and ideation and eventually innovation based on experimentation and refinement
mm-hmm.
are the heart of Silicon Valley, and really the heart of what you could argue is the national economy that we have.
Yeah.
It really is in the nature of, well, if you put enough smart people together on a problem and you give them enough resource, and they're headed with the right leader towards the right team to do the right thing, you're going to cause some spark to happen. And that spark is going to create innovation. And that innovation is ultimately going to propel the world in a certain direction. So I'm going to put up this chart just for a second, just to stimulate some further discussion on where this will go, because it's hard to remember just how far we've already come. But here's a good chart that I pulled for today's discussion. I had a picture that I wanted to show, and this is where Zoom, unfortunately, can bomb out, and it really shouldn't. I mean, to my way of thinking, it should just work. It doesn't always do that. And I think this is where Microsoft could be deciding that they really want to Zoom past Zoom, if I can use the verb and the company name at the same time. They sort of want to create a way to get far beyond where Zoom is. And so they're integrating the entire ChatGPT into their product. So let me see if I can find it and download it fast, because it really was a really good start of human history. Timeline of human history. And it really kind of made a statement about where we are as humans that represents kind of the game-changing nature of things, right? There's kind of a game-changing nature to all this. And the game keeps changing, of course, right? That's part of it. That's part of the story. It's like over time, we see things changing, and they'll continue to change. And it seems inevitable that they're going to change. So the chart represents just how much acceleration has happened even over the last 50 years compared to the last 5,000 years, going backwards to BC, basically going way back to when human beings first evolved.
I've used so many different programs, and I'll tell you what, Zoom by far is, now I know why they're so popular, right? I was just on a Zoom a call with, I think it was Google Teams, and I've done Microsoft Teams or Google this, Google, and
Stay tuned for part 2 of this episode of The Valley Current.